She's April.
And she's Molly.
And we are
the Book Besties.
People will pay $50 a drink in New York City.
I don't eat things with bones, so.
Also, that's what she said, yeah.
I don't know what it says about me that I found the lesbian sex to not be sexy, but the gay men sex to be sexy. He's like, it's because you like penises.
How's your latest book? Any hair pulling, ass smacking?
Bella Swan, eat your horny little Mormon heart out. You're not Molly.
No, no, not this week. Not this week.
I have Katie with me, Nurse Katie, our friend Nurse Katie, because Molly is still sick with COVID.
She kind of got the vid.
Yeah, she's coughing still. Her fever's gone. But I spoke with her on the phone yesterday, and she just sounded like so scratchy. Like it sounded painful to hear. Like I felt so bad for her.
Tell she's not up to it because her text messages in our group are like 1 to 2 words versus the normal Molly rapid fire. And you're like, oh, sissy, you don't feel good, do you?
Yeah. Yeah, she's definitely quieter these days, which is, if you listen to the show, is not Molly.
Okay.
Yeah, but her fever's gone, so she's on the mend.
Good.
But she is still coughing. So, I mean, how long do the cough stick around?
So some patients, it's like a couple weeks. We have some patients that have the long haulers, which that's what I'm worried about with her underlying health conditions, is having like some long haul symptoms with her immune system being weakened. That's who we've been trying to protect this whole time. So it's worrisome that she's going to develop long haul syndrome. So no bueno.
It's so crazy. She was 2 years. She never, got it. And they just moved to a new state.
Welcome to Maryland. Yeah.
Yeah. That sucks. Yeah. So for the month of June, Molly and I had decided for June and July, we're reading like romance, beachy reads, like the kind of stuff you can read poolside, basically. Yeah. And we actually thought it'd be kind of cool for June to do queer reads, LGBTQ friendly, that kind of stuff. So the first one we're doing that we're going to talk about today is One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston, who wrote Red, White, and Royal Blue, which Nurse Katie, Molly, and I all love. We love that book. Such huge fans. So this is her second novel. Her third novel, can't think of the name of it, but I'll put it in the link below, or link it below. That just came out in May, I believe. It definitely came out this year. I think it was May. I Kissed Somebody. I can't think of Jessica something or other. But having Katie on is a real treat because, number one, she's like saving our ass. Because I was like, what am I supposed to do? Just talk to myself for an hour? Like, that sounds terrible. But she read this book in like 2 days, like faster than me. And I was just like, what the hell? You're finished already. How's that possible? But Katie does a lot of work in Columbus with Pride. And I just thought maybe you could take a little bit of time to talk about that. I know you've done like the Free Mom Hugs group as well. And right now you're doing Trevor Project stuff. So share away.
So I am part of the community. I am an ally. I have children that identify as members of the community. I just have this crazy notion that you should be able to love whoever you want to love.
100%.
I have been very blessed to be in a heteronormative cis relationship. So I haven't had to fight battles that members of that community have. So when you think about the word ally, it's when you're pulling in some of your strongest resources to accomplish a goal. So that's why I'm an ally, because I am a strong resource, because I have had a lot of privilege in my life. I'm educated. I have parents who are married for 50 plus years. So I am here to fight this battle for those who need help. So part of what I do on a day-to-day basis is it's in my job as a nurse practitioner. All of my exam rooms have small pride flags in them, very innocuous, but just so that they know it's a safe space. And like, if you have questions or concerns, this is a safe space for you. I wear a badge pull that says ally, so patients know that too. I am organizing our my office's group to walk in the Pride Parade in Columbus. Columbus, Ohio is very LGBTQ AI plus
Yes.
friendly, but we're still in the Midwest. So there's still a lot of things that happen. Both of my children have heard and been called slurs in our community, which is not okay. So that's a big component for me
Right.
for June. I'm really looking forward to that. This will be my children's first Pride. So to be able to introduce them and be the parent that's there with them, I'm excited to share that with them. Steve
awesome.
has to work that day, so that's why he's not. And I was like, just take a vacation day. He's like, I want to go on vacation. So the second thing that I'm doing is through the Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is amazing. It is an online forum, an online community for teens, young adults, pretty much anybody who has questions, concerns. They have a 24/7 suicide helpline. It is just a wealth of knowledge and community sharing and support for anybody who needs it. A really good program. They are doing 51 for Trevor. So this 2022 is the 51st anniversary of the Stonewall riots in San Francisco. So Trevor is you complete 51 miles, however, walking, running, biking, cycling, riding motorcycles, roller skating, and the hashtag is hashtag 51 for Trevor Pride. So you do these miles and you raise funds to support the Trevor Project. So I'm about 3/4 of the way to my goal already, and it doesn't start until June 1st. So I'm super excited that so many members of my community have helped. So
can we link your fundraising page
yes,
to
of course.
the
Yes, of
and
course,
then so if anybody's interested in helping Katie hit her goal, click the link below and support her.
And even if you're like, I don't know this chick, just click the link and go to the Trevor Project and donate in somebody that you love. It doesn't have to be a directed donation. Just, support them because you don't know what somebody's battling. This could hit home 100% to somebody you love and want to keep safe. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So one of the reasons I actually went to library school was because my first teaching job was at a performing arts school. Yeah. And so I had a lot of students that were LGBTQ. I mean, a lot. We had a huge GSA, Gay Straight Alliance organization. I consider myself to also be an ally. Growing up, my uncle, who is deceased now, he never really talked about being gay. I knew because I was the oldest grandchild and I wasn't stupid. His partner was our uncle. They were together for 20 years. And when my uncle was dying, in our hometown, in that hospital, his partner of 20 years would not have been welcomed into the room with him had our family not been like, this is family too. Yep. And to me, that is absolutely horrific. Yep. 20 years they were together. Yep. They actually, interestingly, they lived in San Francisco for a while. They were big and activists in the Columbus LGBTQ community. And so I grew up knowing these things. And when I taught high school at a performing arts school, and I had so many kids who were looking to me for resources, like, do you have any books that have gay characters? And there was not a lot of YA at the time. There was just nothing. And I was like, I have this one series called The Rainbow Boys, which I enjoy that series, but now it's very dated. There's much better, much more things now. Fast forward to this school year, that was the number one requested item was, can you please get some more books that are in the community? Yeah. And I did. And I have a group of girls who hang out with me who are all, one is bisexual, one is pansexual, and one is a lesbian, and they all just hang out every morning in the library. It's their safe space. I love that. And I'm glad they feel safe with me, it's an interesting choice. I've always felt like that. Even the kids that would come out to me at my first job, I feel like I was an interesting choice because I am a conservative and I am a super strong Christian. And those aren't normally things that, sadly, those are not things that you associate with being a safe space for someone who is LGBTQ. But I think that's wrong. Like, I feel like you can still love God and love people and understand that it doesn't matter who somebody else loves. Like, it doesn't matter to me.
That's one of the big 10. Like, love thy neighbor. Like, it doesn't say anything past that. Just love thy neighbor. So to me, that's a true expression of God's love, Christ's love. I identify 100%. As a Christian too. And you can't tell me that somebody, that my God and my Savior will judge me for who I love versus somebody's hate. Like, you, and it's not my place. So that's, I completely feel the same way. Like, that's, the two are not in, you know, they're not separate. It's a true expression of God's love, is to love 100%. Everybody. Yeah.
And sadly, I texted this picture to you and to Molly this week, but sadly I had one of my, I had a book called LGBTQ Rights that I bought this year, a nonfiction book about, you know, it was geared for middle schoolers. Like, here are the things that you have the right to as a human, but let alone as a human who identifies LGBTQ. And someone destroyed the book, and it broke my freaking heart, because to me, that was not about destroying a book. That was about destroying people. Yes. And I really, really take issue with that. So I taped the book up, and I honestly, we're wrapping up the year for me. Like, we only have a few weeks left of school, but I am so tempted to just like put every single pride flag you can imagine and just
everywhere,
the library,
all the rainbows.
I mean, this generation of kids, the Gen Zers and the Gen Alphas, they are just so more open and fluid sexually and gender fluid. And I mean, they're more open. And in a lot of ways that makes me happy, because I'm like, I think about people we went to high school with, because for those of you who don't know, Katie and I have known each other since middle school. We went to high school and middle school together. I think about people we went to high school with who were deeply in the closet because they were terrified to come out. And now they're living their best gay life. Like,
and they're amazing. And they're amazing partners. And they're amazing parents. And they are amazing people, because they are living their authentic life. And that's, Right.
Absolutely. So I'm so thankful for the things that you are doing in Columbus, because, you know, that's where I'm from too. So I love it. But it's just making such a big impact. Like, and I love that your girls feel safe to come and talk to you too. Like, that's so important. Tom and I have agreed that if either of our sons grow up and, you know, we don't want them to feel like they have to come out to us. Just bring your boyfriend home. Like, we're fine with it. We don't care. Just bring him home and we'll be like, okay, cool. I'm not going to say we won't be able to, like, wait, what happened? But
my 3 requirements for the person that my children decide to maintain a partnership with is they have to love them, they have to respect them, and they have to keep them safe. That's it. I don't care what their genitals look like. I don't care what I mean, I do care, because I don't want to think of my babies having sex in any way, shape, or form, but I don't care how they express their love to one another. Those are the things that are important to me, is that you respect them, that you love them, and that you keep them safe, because that's what I do for them. And that is your responsibility. When I give you my child to continue your life with, that's what I expect of you. 100%. I don't care what that package looks like. It's the inside that counts. So
Absolutely. So with all that said, we're going to talk about this book, One Last Stop, which is lesbian time travel. I had such high hopes. Okay.
Such high hopes for you, Casey. Casey, if you're listening, we love you. Please don't write smut like this anymore.
This one wasn't it. All right, I'm going to give a synopsis.
Please. Yes.
All right. August has never felt home anywhere. All her possessions fit into 4 boxes. She has kept her life small after surviving Hurricane Katrina as a kid. After bouncing from college to college, she lands in NYC to try her hand at a new college and a new major. After arriving, she lucks into an apartment with Mila, Nico, and Wes, a weird hodgepodge of a found family, and a job waitressing at Pancake Billy's House of Pancakes. Worst name ever.
Dumbest name ever.
One day after a long shift, she spills coffee on herself before jumping on a subway car on the Q line While on the line, she meets Jane, a butch lesbian badass who just happens to be stuck in time after a mysterious event in the late 1970s. August and Jane fall for each other over shared memories and kisses that reveal more and more of Jane's past. There's several side stories involving drag queens, gentrification, and a mystery from August's mom's life that round out this story. There's also a lot of subway sex, which can absolutely not be hygienic.
Not on any level.
No.
I have been on the L in Chicago. I have been on the subway in New York. I've been on the like red little things in San Francisco, New York. By far the filthiest. Like, not okay. Yeah.
I've ridden the subway in DC, and I was going to a conference, and I was wearing a skirt, and the entire time I was like, oh gosh, please don't, none of my skin better touch anything.
Don't let this touch me. Yeah.
Like pulling my skirt down, and like now I'm all belly hanging out, and I don't care because I'm like, I am not touching this.
I would rather have this show than that touch. It's all about balance. Yeah.
Exactly. So gross. All right. So this book by the author of Red, White, and Royal Blue, like we said, did you feel the sophomore attempt held up to the author's first book?
No, I really liked Red, White, and Royal Blue. I really liked Casey's voice.
Yes.
But I felt like a lot of this story was very forced. I felt like she was doing things that she expected us to want to have in there versus Red, White, and Royal Blue. It just happened. And you fell in love with these characters as they fell in love with each other. Where in One Last Stop, this explosion and this kismet that August and Jane had, I didn't feel that. I didn't feel like where in Red, White, and Royal Blue with Henry, you're falling in love with them together. And it felt more organic in Red, White, and Royal Blue. Yes. And in this one, it did feel very forced.
Yes, I agree with you completely. I felt like organic is like the perfect word for it. Like Alex and Henry falling in love with each other, it was organic. It developed in a way that like it was enemies to lovers, right? Yeah. But Henry had always loved Alex anyway. It wasn't really enemies to lovers for him, but their relationship evolved. Yeah. Like Jane and August, I don't understand, other than the plot twist, which we'll talk about in a minute, I don't understand why she was the woman that could bring Jane back. There were so many other women that like were sending out personal ads, like we're trying to connect with her. Like it doesn't make sense other than that. And to me, that plot twist was terrible. Like I guessed it a really long time ago and it was like,
yeah, not satisfying at all when you're like, oh, okay. Yeah.
And I thought, and I don't know if the sex in this book was not for me because of the subway. Like I just kept thinking how dirty it was. Actually, I said to Tom, I don't know what it says about me that I found the lesbian sex to not be sexy, but the gay men sex to be sexy. He's like, it's because you like penises. And I was like, oh, that could be it. Could be it. I like penises.
I think it just didn't, like, that was one part where I was really like, really? This is where that ended up? This is not, okay, I get it. It's fine. Was it a little bit hot? Yeah, it was a little bit hot. But did it feel like this, like, oh my gosh, like, don't talk to me. Let me turn the next page, like it was with Red, White, and Royal. Like, I was like, whoa, I need to go back and read that.
I know.
I was like, thank God that's over. Like, I'm ready to move on to the next part of the story. So
I read Red, White, and Royal Blue 4 times in 1 year. Like, I just kept reading it. I just kept reading it. And, like, the first time I was reading it was an audiobook. And so the second time I was reading a physical book, and I was, like, laying in bed and I was reading it, and Tom walked in, and, like, I know I turned red. And I was like, these boys are naughty. Did not feel that way with this.
No.
Did not feel that way.
Felt very forced. And it didn't feel like in Red, White, and Royal Blue, it was a connection, and it was chemistry, and all of this. This felt like a task. Like she had to check that off. Like her editors were like, make sure you have a steamy sex scene. Check. Like it didn't feel like this connection like Alex and Henry had. So
yeah, exactly. And I don't know, do you read author's notes at the end of books? I'm such a fan of
I can't remember if this one.
So she actually says in here, this is the beginning of her author's note. Where do I begin? Like this book, these acknowledgments have gone through multiple drafts. Yeah. An earlier version was about the anxiety of the sophomore slump. And right there, to me, I thought, so you knew this wasn't as good.
You knew. Yeah.
You knew this wasn't as good. But the thing is, it's going to sell because of her name, because so many people came to like love red, white, and royal blue.
Yeah.
They want that. So they're going to come for Casey McQuiston's name. I actually had a lot of students read this one this year, and I teach middle school. Like, this is not for you, baby doll. No.
So my Chloe actually asked if she could read this one, and I felt like this one was okay, because I didn't feel like, so part of me and, navigating a youth through all of this is knowing that there is going to be a lot of sex that they're exposed to. And for some reason, this book felt a little bit safer in the sex department than Red, White, and Royal Blue. I felt like Red, White, and Royal Blue was a little more mature in the whole sexual realm, whereas this one was a little bit safer, maybe because it was less graphic.
See, I actually disagree. I thought this one was more graphic.
Did you?
I mean, there's the blowjob scene in Red, White, and Royal Blue where they explain that. But the time that they have, like, penetration sex, like, it cuts to black. Yeah. This goes into heavy detail about what Jane is doing to her.
See, and maybe
I thought this one was more graphic.
I was, like, completely, like, disconnected at that part, because I just felt like it was so forced that maybe I wasn't, like, mentally invested in the story. So I might have to go back and reread it now that you say that.
Well, and you also didn't like the ending, which I didn't either. And so I think more of the graphic sex happens after the whole thing, which we'll get to in a minute. Yeah. All right. So we both agree, not as good as the first one that she wrote.
Not by a long shot.
So this book has a lot of great one-liners in it, because Casey McQuiston, she can write a one-liner. Girl can write a one-liner.
Girl can write, yeah.
Yeah. Any that really stuck out to you?
Yeah. I have them tabbed.
Oh, I did rainbows. So
I did blue and green, because I literally, this is my rainbow tabs. Nice. Could not find them. I was getting ready to leave to go to Syracuse, and I was like, I'm going to read on the plane. Couldn't find them anywhere. Couldn't find them anywhere, because this is what I could see. And I was like, where are my tabs? Because they were flipped over. So
I had to use 2 different packs, because one pack didn't have purple. It had all the other colors and not purple. So.
Let's see. Okay.
I had a few that were really good.
One of, like, early on, page 33, Subway Girl smiles, morning. August Brain says hi. Her mouth goes for morning, and what comes out is horny. I started cracking up at that one. That one was really cute. I was like, that's funny. We've all done that, where you're like, oh, yeah. And then page 52, they, I think it's the first time. Yes, it's the first time we meet Isaiah.
I love Isaiah.
Yes. Never thought I'd see a vampire I absolutely didn't want to fuck. I was in the Columbus airport, like, snorting. People were looking at me, and I was like, good book. Sorry. Good book. So, and then there's some more, like, poignant ones. Okay. Let's see. Jane, let's see. When they first realize that Jane is, like, connected to the train on page 60, Jane stretches an arm across the back of her seat behind her shoulders. She has this way of moving through the world, like she owns every place she walks into, like she's never once been told she couldn't do something. She carries it well because she probably has been told what she can't do plenty of times and doesn't care. And nice. I like Jane. I like Jane as a character much better than I like August, but I really liked that one.
I felt like I related more to August because she's awkward and feels like she has no home, and like I understand that.
Yeah. And then go ahead.
I loved on 87. She's going to have to say this out loud, isn't she? Bella Swan, eat your horny little Mormon heart out.
Yes. I was like, that's amazing. Yeah.
I also like when Mila says Mila's office has a on 167, she has a homemade cross stitch that says, big dick energy is gender neutral. I actually said that to Tom this morning.
I love that.
I said, I don't want to be a dick. He's like, you can't. And I was like, big dick energy is gender neutral.
So I love the people on Etsy that have like the swear wordy cross stitch. That needs to be on one. I would put that in my office so hard if I didn't think I would get maybe slightly reprimanded for it. Totally.
I actually had checked out a book from my public library that was cross stitch words that are all like fuck and one is like
patterns.
Fucking not. Yeah, patterns.
Well, that would be amazing. I wonder if the Delaware Library has that. I might have to check.
I don't know, but you definitely could get it on Amazon. # not sponsored too.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But I also, this is right at the beginning of the book. This is the first tab I have in my book. Page 3, first tab. But she's got nowhere to go, and there's a Popeyes on the first floor of the building. August Landry does not trust people, but she trusts fried chicken.
Listen. I cannot make fried chicken. I almost burnt down our house trying to make fried chicken. Literally, like, there was grease dripping out of the bottom of it, and I didn't realize it, and it was, like, catching on fire, and I was, like, freaking out, and Steve's like, turn off the oven. Oh, okay, duh. So I did that, and it was still working because it was still hot, and he, like, just took a pot lid and covered it to smother it. I'm like, thank God my firefighter husband was here, or I would have burnt the place down. So I don't make fried chicken. I just gave up. I was like, and this was like, the kids were tiny, like 3 and 4. And I'm like, I'm not making fried chicken. So I identify with that line. You can trust fried chicken. So yeah.
I don't eat things that have bones in them. Like, so I could make one hell of a chicken tender. And I'm sure I could make chicken, like fried chicken, because I can, like, it's the same batter, but I don't eat things with bones. So.
That's unfortunate.
I've actually never had Popeyes.
That's what she said. Yeah.
That was awful. Oh man. All right, moving on.
All right, I digress.
That was hilarious. All right, do you find August and Jane's love story believable? I mean, beside of the all weird time stuff that's very wibbly wobbly, timey wimey.
I don't know. I looked at that question a lot, and I don't know.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like, do they have anything in common? Never talks about, like, that they share an affinity for, like, the punk rock music. August, like, made herself learn about it because Jane seemed like a punk girl. Yeah. They love Pop-Tarts, but that's August gave that to Jane. You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't, like, taken out of that scenario, would they have connected?
I agree with you.
Lesbians, not every lesbian has the same interest as every other lesbian. Just like not every straight person has the same interest as every other straight person. So I was like, I don't know if this is believable. So
I agree with you. I think August didn't know who she was. And so I think what the author is trying to do here is saying that, like, Jane helped her discover who she was. Yeah. But I don't think that's what actually happened. I think what actually happened is August poured herself into Jane and became what Jane wanted, as opposed to actually being a person herself.
And being her authentic self,
And that is very codependent and awkward, and you're in love with a person who can't get off the subway. So this is problematic.
Very.
There are parts of this that reminded me, you don't watch Doctor Who, right?
Not yet. It's like one of those that every time I think I'm going to start it, life happens. Because I know it's one that, like, everybody says and you have to be, like, ready for it. Yeah. But I just have never gotten into it. But I get a lot of the cultural references. So,
well, the Weeping Angels are... they start with the 10th Doctor, which is David Tennant's Doctor. And the very first Weeping Angels episode, you find out that what they do, their very evil thing that they do, is when they touch you, they transport you back in time, and you're just stuck there. And you have to live your life in a different time, which doesn't seem totally evil, except you've been taken away from everything that you know and all the people you know, and you now have to live a totally different life. And this reminded me of that. There was nothing that like happened to Jane that was like, she just lived her life, but she was on pause, which the Weeping Angels, you live until you die. But her life was on pause. Like she's just sitting there and she doesn't realize how long she's been there until August tells her. I don't know. It was just, I don't know. I didn't even find the sci-fi believable. Like, I didn't even find that believable.
The science was like ogre. Like, it wasn't. And then the whole, and I don't know if you're going to get to this, like the whole, how they reset Jane.
Yeah. Right. We can actually get there now because my next question was sex on a subway, yes or no? But I think we both have already agreed that that's a no.
Yeah.
I don't even think sex in public would be it for me. Like I would just be like, no.
I don't. How do I want to phrase this? I don't have enough body confidence that I would not be like, oh, sweet Jesus. So I could not pull it off anywhere. Anywhere.
I agree.
So,
I agree. So there's a mystery that's deeply rooted in August's life, and her uncle disappeared. And this is getting a bell for me. Her uncle disappeared when her mom was younger. Yes, we got Katie a bell. I forgot to point out that Katie is also wearing an Honorary Book Besties t-shirt. Oh, and she got a bell. Because
I have all the swag. Yeah.
The whole swag we have. That's all we've got. So August's uncle disappeared when her mom was younger. There was a huge gap between the two of them in age. And so August's mom was quite young when this happened, like 10 or something.
Yeah.
And her mom spent literally August's entire life trying to solve the mystery of her uncle, of her brother's disappearance. And spoiler alert, there's a connection to Jane. Were you surprised by this?
No.
No, me neither.
It was like real weak. You're like, when you sent the text message, I'm not satisfied. I was like, I know exactly what part of the book she's in. Because when I got to it, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Yeah. So I wanted it to be like more earth shattering, and that's why they were connected. And it was just kind of like this connection versus. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And like side note, but her mom has to be like the worst librarian ever because our job is literally to find information, and she's a librarian and she has not been able to find out that A, her brother left because he was gay, and B, that her brother worked at this a bar I had never heard of in New Orleans that was it's a true story. I will link it below. It was burned arson and killed, I can't remember how many people. It was like 20 people.
Yeah. It was significant. Yeah.
Yeah. Who were basically murdered.
Yeah.
And she can't figure any of this stuff out. Come on. Worst librarian ever.
This is like set in current times. Like, this is not like set in 1980 where we didn't have the interwebs, where you could literally Google everything. Mm-hmm. Like, seriously, I was a couple times I was like, okay. So.
And August is 24 in the book. So, like, it's been taking place since the internet, her entire life.
Her whole life, yeah.
Yeah. Worst librarian ever. Yeah, the plot twist for me, it didn't do it. The connection that Jane was actually, the plot twist is, spoiler, if you've listened to Book Besties, you know we spoil things, so we're just going to spoil it. Jane was Augie, which is August's uncle. She's named after him. She was his roommate in New Orleans. He ran away from home just like Jane did because they were both queer and that was not accepted. They were living together in New Orleans, and she thought he had died in the fire. And that's supposed to be the thing that like keeps August and Jane connecting together, and it's just so weak. It's just so weak.
It's just not enough. It's not enough. Like, it's if August had like this amazing relationship with Augie, like he left after I was he was the main male in my life, and
Right.
or if she had a deep connection to her mother, that she was like,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm doing this for my mom, and I've seen all this trauma that my mom went through, but neither one of those occur. It's both like just real. It's weak. That's the best. Just so weak, weak on the connection. Yeah.
And speaking of her mom, there is a literal Gilmore Girls cliche.
God. Oh,
and not only is it in there, but August literally says, what kind of Gilmore Girls crap is this? So we learned that... I know.
So, I mean, I think I was like K at that point.
Yeah. We learned that... So August, she refers to herself... Her grandparents, she believes, refers to her as a test tube baby. Mm-hmm. So her mother did not have a partner when she had August. She had a donor.
Yep.
And that's how August was conceived. And August was raised by a single mother with no father to be heard of. And August's mom told her that her grandparents did not accept her because of that. They're like bougie, rich. Yeah. New Orleans family, and they didn't accept her, and they just didn't accept her, and they didn't accept her brother, and yet she still didn't connect the dots that her brother was gay,
right?
Whatever. But it turns out that her grandparents had been paying for her schooling all her life.
Yep.
And that her mom made the decision that she wasn't going to pay for August college. So August is like drowning in student debt because she's went to 4 different schools, which part of that is just on her. Like, baby doll, you're 24. You need to figure your
shit out. Yeah.
Figure your shit out. But like, come on. It was so bad.
Yep. Yeah. I was like, this is just, not okay. I'm like, and then we don't find out about it until the grandma dies and then leaves her money.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just happens to be just enough money to save Pancake Billy's House of Pancakes.
$300 more so they can do some, and I'm sorry, but there is not a single amount of property in New York City, Brooklyn, Queens, anywhere for $100,000. Hell to the no. Especially not one that would have historical significance. We're talking in the millions there. No.
Absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
No. Yeah. That doesn't happen. Yeah.
So I think I'm actually going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to talk about the fundraiser. So now that we've brought it up. Pancake Billy's House of Pancakes fundraiser. So my actual note to you is, seriously, this is such a 90s sitcom fundraiser cliche that I can't even write a question. We need to talk about it.
Yeah. Let's organize a drag show, gang. Let's pancakes.
It'll make all the worlds of difference.
We've sold so many tickets that we have to find a bigger venue. We're running out of pancake batter. Like,
conveniently, that venue ends up being, the catalyst to free Jane. But
sure, just happens to work that way. She just happens to have hooked up with a guy whose uncle happens to like. Okay.
And that guy happens to be a douche, so they're all going to make fun of him and don't feel bad about he might have been a douche. I don't know, but
he might have been.
But oh my gosh, it was so bad.
So cheesy.
It was bad, and Pancake Billy was never involved in any of the fundraiser. Why were all of his workers supporting him to buy a building just so that they could keep working in it?
Right. Like I have never worked at a job that much where I was like, wow, I really like, and I worked at a small diner for many years.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Super cheesy. Just. Yeah.
And the fact that August takes the money from her grandmother and buys the rest of Pancake Billy's House of Pancakes, which is the most god-awful name, which they point out that it's a terrible name in it. But why not use it to pay off some of your incredibly significant student debt? Why not use some of it to get
because you're literally working at a pancake house in one of the most expensive cities in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And you probably have $60,000-$70,000 of student loans. Girl, get your shit together. Yeah.
Right. That was stupid.
So just, that's where it was really like, okay, this is really far-fetched. Like, when Jane came out that she was a time traveler, I was like, oh, okay, this is where this is going. And I think you said it best when you said it's written like realistic fiction, but it's supposed to be sci-fi. Like, that was too blurred of a line. Like, I was like, it lost me. Yeah. So.
Yeah, there's sci-fi elements to the story that's supposed to, like, that it feels like realistic fiction, and like, it just didn't work. It just didn't work.
It felt like she was writing, like, trying to write all these different, she had all these great ideas in her head and just couldn't marry them. It just felt so like things that she wanted to have in there, and she felt like these were important things to have in this book, but it was just very disjointed, and trying to make those connections was just so weak. Every time was just weak.
Well, and I don't know why the idea that basically the fundraiser ends up being a lot of people who are LGBTQ, and they've all come together to save Pancake Billy's. And I don't know why the fundraiser has to be a drag show. Like, to me, that feels really, really cliche. Like, there are so many other things in the community that you can bring. I mean, music is a huge part of the community. Like, there's so many other things that you could bring in that wasn't drag.
There's so many other forms of performing art that, like, why did we have to stuff drag down? Like, because it's an attention getter? Like, that was another thing that just felt not organic, felt very forced, and that was like,
I mean, you're in New York City. You're telling me you don't know just actors who are gay. Like, it's New York City.
Yeah.
And also the fact, and I mean, I don't have a problem with drag. Like, I don't want that to come across like I have a problem with a drag show. It just felt cliche that was what they chose.
Very cliche, yeah.
And to me, it felt too, what is the word I want to look for? Wholesome, maybe. That the entire community was like, sure, we'll donate space, and we'll donate liquor and pancakes, and we'll donate all this stuff to save Pancake Billy's. Like, I understand that gentrification is problematic for the community as a whole. Like, once that starts happening, then the price of things go up, and then it becomes difficult for everybody to pay their rent. But I don't know very many people that'll be like, here, I'm going to donate a crap ton of liquor. Like, that just doesn't happen.
Especially in New York City. It doesn't happen. People will pay $50 a drink in New York City. 100%. I don't know any, like, buddy who's like, yeah, I will totally donate top shelf liquor. Like, really?
No, absolutely not.
Come on. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we both kind of agree. Like, this just, I had such high hopes, Katie. Such high hopes.
Me
when
too.
I pitched it to Katie, only 6 chapters in, when I said, hey, can you read this with me? And at the time I was like, yeah, this is an interesting story. It just didn't.
Then it went downhill very quickly. Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about Jane's life. She lived a very interesting life as an out and proud lesbian in the 70s, which is, like, huge. Do you feel like her progress was diminished by her being lost in time?
Oh, for sure. And we had kind of talked about this. Like, I wanted Jane to go back. I wanted her to go back to the 70s and live this amazing advocate life and do all these big things, and then come back and meet August as an old woman 3 months down the road and be like, this is what I've done for you. All of these things that I saw, you know, Wes and Isaiah being open. I saw Nico and Mila being open. I saw you, those things that we did. I went back and I made sure that this shit happened for you. Yeah. That's what I wanted versus.
That is a much better ending than the ending.
So much better. I would have felt so much more internally rewarded for spending my time on this that I was like, that would, but yeah, I think Jane would have smashed the patriarchy, burned the flags, and done all of it if she had gone back versus just there she's there. So, yeah.
I think it just is a better story to tell that she saw the future that she was trying to build and she went back and made sure it happened.
Yeah.
That's a much better story. And I'm disappointed because I feel like that was there. Like, it was there. And I feel like if her editor, Casey McQuiston's editor, just would have been like, what about this?
Right.
What about
it could have been,
this?
Yep.
It could have been a really good book.
Yep.
As as it is, I gave it 3 stars on Goodreads, and I feel like if that ending would have happened, I maybe would have gone 3.5, maybe 4.
Yeah.
Because I love Casey McQuiston's writing. Like, I love it. She's so witty and
the writing
sarcastic.
is good. Yeah.
The writing
That's
is
why
great.
it's hard that the story is shit, because the writing is so good. So yeah.
I also think, like, sci-fi is just not it for her. Like, handling this, she tried to, like, legitimize the science by having Mila be an electrical engineer.
Yeah.
And so she's connected to the line, and this is how this would work. And absolutely not. Like, it doesn't that's not, no, she'd be dead.
Right.
She would have been electrocuted and died. Like, that's the science.
Yeah.
And even when you're supposed to suspend reality, like, I love sci-fi, so even when you're supposed to suspend reality, I couldn't do it here because of what
I think part of what makes
so realistic.
Yeah, good sci-fi is you're like, that could totally happen. That's what makes good sci-fi. Yeah. That's why people love sci-fi, because you're like, yeah, this can totally happen. This is going to happen in our lifetime. And then to see this, you're like, this is not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So yeah.
Yeah. All right, so there are other characters. We haven't dug too deep into them. So we've kind of got the found family cliche trope kind of thing. How do you feel about that in literature? Do you like found family?
Depends on the family. I think this series that I just finished, which you guys have to read, the 3 Dark Crown ones, there's a lot of found family in that. And some of those families are great and some of those families are shit. But I like this found family.
I do too.
Feel like I liked the supporting characters a lot in this book. I loved Nico. I loved, and he was one that I tabbed. Let me see if I can find it.
To me, this found family is like Friends, but the new generation.
Yes. Yep.
I think, like, our generation grew up watching Friends and that being a found family. And this is like the LGBTQ found family of today.
This is what I see my kids doing. This is how I view my children's relationships with their peers and how they interact with each other and how their lives are. Like, it's because it's so fluid and it's just different. So on page 185, she's talking about how Nico's psychic, and she's friends with a whole psychic, and she believes
a whole psychic.
Can I ask you a personal question? And then she says, "When did you know?" And he says, "That I was trans." And she says, "No, that you were psychic." Oh, he shakes his head, a fang dangling from his ear. Whenever someone asks me personal questions, it's always about being trans. That's like so low on the list of the most interesting things about me, but it's funny because the answer is the same. I just always knew. But like, that's why I love that character, because like it is so far down the list of things that are interesting about them. And I was like, that's really good writing there. I'll give you that point, Casey McQuiston. Shit story, great writing. So
yeah. I liked that part as well. And I thought, I liked the way they approached Nico being trans. We don't know that he's trans until, I mean, it's almost the middle of the book when Autumn finds the picture of the girl in the princess outfit on the refrigerator, and she's like, "Who's this?" And Nico's like, "Oh, that's me." And it's like, "Oh, this is a trans man." Like, we don't know that. And I think people that don't understand transgender would be like kind of caught off guard by this, because you can't always tell when someone is trans. So I liked the way that was handled. I felt that was really delicate. And then bringing that up, that like the most interesting thing about him is not that he's trans.
It's not that. Yeah.
And I also really liked the line when August loses her virginity on the train. And she's not sure, have I actually lost my virginity, because it's with a woman, and does that count? And she wants it to count. And Mila says that, you know, that's just an idea that involved penises, and if you had to be jammed with a dick or something. I can't remember her exact wording, but she's like, in that case, Nico and I have never had sex, and we all know that's not true in this apartment. And I thought that
but
was
it's
really
the truth. Like, it's this construct of what should be normal, which is heteronormal, but that doesn't mean that you weren't less intimate with somebody just because you didn't have penis into vagina. So, yeah.
And that idea really is archaic, going back to women had to be virgins in order to be worth anything, which is just absolutely ridiculous.
Right.
So Mila is my favorite character. I just want to say I love her. I think she is just like the energy she brings, the language. Like, I feel like that voice, that character's voice, is like the most authentic in the story. Yes. I just love her. Yeah. And so Wes, to me, I liked his character evolution. Going from the like kid that was like terrified to really even come out of his bedroom to all of a sudden he's admitting he's in love with Isaiah, and I love that. I love that journey of him. And to me, those stories were actually more interesting than Jane and August.
Yep. I wanted to read more about them. I wanted to know like more about Mila and Nico, and I wanted to read their happily ever after more so much than Jane and August. So yeah.
And we know that they're going to get married, which is super cute. And all right, so let's talk about the ending. That fucking ending. Oh my gosh,
so dumb.
Did you feel like it was such a throwaway? Me too. I agree. Such a throwaway. And we both agree that it would have been a better ending to have Jane spend her time in the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, and then coming back to actually interact with August and say, the things. Yeah. But what actually ends up happening is that 3 months after, they have this very elaborate plan. I'll set me back up a little bit. Pancake Billy's fundraiser ends up being part of their heist, which is not really a heist because they're not stealing anything, which August keeps pointing out, but it's also like a heist. So they're going to basically have Jane stand on the third rail, which is the rail she was standing on when the power outage happened in New York City in the 70s, which I didn't even know was a thing.
It's a huge thing. Yeah.
I didn't. And so when that happened, Jane was on the third rail and she was transported not really anywhere. She stayed there. She just couldn't leave the line.
Yeah.
And so the idea is that if they create something similar, that maybe she can go back to her own time or at least leave the train, which she's never been able to do. And it ends up being that the only way that she can really do it is August kissing her, which is so fucking cliche.
So dumb.
Also, August would have died. Like, that would have killed her.
Like, you can conduct electricity through a human body. People don't realize that. Like, that's how people get electrocuted when they touch somebody who's being electrocuted. Like, hello.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it would have stopped her heart, right?
Yeah,
that's probably what would have happened.
Yeah,
she would have died.
Yeah.
And then what actually happens is 3 months later, when they're celebrating the fact that Pancake Billy's has been saved, yay! Jane walks in the door, and no time has happened for her. She basically it's just happened for her, and it's been 3 months for August, and of course they love each other still, and they are together again, and they rush home, and then there's a lot of sex, and they live together. So the ending keeps going on. Like, to me, it should have just ended. It didn't. It kept going. So Jane's actually going to go meet her family again. And she's going to go by her original name. And
just forced. It felt so forced. It just was not. I was just not feeling life at that point. I was like, I can't.
I feel like this is similar to how Red, White, and Royal Blue ended. Like, I feel like that book continued on longer than it should have too. Yeah. Like, the idea that Alex and Henry rode their bikes in fucking hot ass Austin, Texas.
Right.
From the venue where his mom's campaign rally was all the way to his house. Like, no. Like, I just think Casey McQuiston can't write an ending. It's 2 books.
Help, sissy. Do you need help with that? Do you need to
Not working out for
you
you.
need a better beta reader, or what's going on, sis? Come on. Like, yeah. It just felt, again, forced. Like, that she had to get to this page count or number count or something where, I mean, I'd have been fine with a Jane coming back and it being a fade to black.
Yes.
Or our ending, where she aged and she came back as an old woman who's this badass advocate, activist bitch. So, yeah, versus...
But even that, like, would have been a much better ending than they get, like, a happily ever after and we see it. Like, I didn't need to see it. Like, I needed it to be implied.
Yep.
You know? Like, one of the things we complained about with the book, The Fault in Our Stars, was that there isn't a clear ending, right? It's sort of just like, you know, it's over. What happens to Hazel? We don't know. Yeah. I needed that for this book.
Yeah.
I needed that. Yeah. Okay, they're together at the end.
Right. And that would have been okay versus this forced cliche, oh, we're having this happily ever after. Nick and Mila and Nico are getting married, you know, like all, it's just, it was just so forced. So many tick boxes that had to be ticked. So, yeah.
It's like, you need to tie up a bow, but you don't need to tie up all the bows.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you don't have to.
You want to finish a story, but it doesn't have to always be this big, huge bubble. So, yeah.
Right. And I still argue that Pancake Billy's being saved is like...
so dumb.
Stupid. Y'all raise money for a business that you work at when the owner didn't even care enough to be at the fucking fundraiser. Like,
right? Like, we meet him at the end and he's passing out drinks and is all excited. And you're like, where the fuck have you been for the last 300 pages, sir? Like, hello? Yeah. Yeah.
Get your shit together.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I don't have anything else. Do you have anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, overall, like, I like her writing. I love her voice, but just the story was just...
Yeah, it didn't get there for me. No, it didn't do it for me.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that I won't reread Red, White, and Royal Blue. Probably. Like
it's on my bookshelf. Yeah.
I love that one so much.
Yeah.
If you haven't read that one, read it and then go back and listen to our season 1 episode about it, because Molly and I really loved that one a lot. And
that's a good one.
Yeah, it is. So next week we are continuing with Pride-themed books. This one's called Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I literally started it before Katie logged in, and I am 4 pages in. So it is a series. There are 2 books out in the series right now, and a 3rd one due out in 2023. And we are wrapping out June with The Guncle, which I do not have a copy of. I'm listening to the audiobook, but I 100% recommend the audiobook. The narrator for the audiobook is the author, and I feel like it just adds a whole layer that's like, it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's very funny. Like, I'm literally laughing out loud while I'm listening to it. And it's a funny book that's wrapped up in a tragedy. So, those are my favorite kind anyway. We are taking off the last week in June and the first week of July. Molly and I have just had a lot of life stuff happen, and we need a break. So we're going to take those 2 weeks off, and then we'll be back in July, where we're going to do heteronormative romance novels that I basically have just had on my TBR. So we're going to read them for July.
All the romance.
Yes. You know what's interesting is I never read romance novels. Like, the most spicy thing I had really read was The Royal We, which
is not that spicy. Yeah.
It's not spicy. Like, you don't actually see the sex. It's all cut to black, right? And then in 2020, was it? I think I started listening to like romance novel audiobooks, and I was like, yeah, I like this. And so now it's that's what's all over my
smut.
It's so funny because my bookshelf is basically YA fantasy, like Twilight and Hunger Games, and then smut. Yeah. There's nothing in between.
So I like to listen to smut when I drive back and forth to work, and I have a friend named Shane who's Irish. And we were talking about books one time, and I wasn't chiming in, and he was like, "Oh, do you read?" And I was like, "Yeah, I read smut." And he was like, what's smut? And I was like hair pulling, ass smacking, hot, dirty sex in a book. And so, like, every time he sees me in, like, this fabulous Irish accent, he's always like, how's your latest book? Any hair pulling, ass smacking? And I'm like, well, yeah. But you can't judge me, so, yeah.
I mean, I guess I did read 50 Shades of Grey before I read The Royal We, but I deeply disliked it.
That is the worst book ever.
I deeply disliked it. I was forced to read it for work, and what a weird job when you're forced to read something like that. But it's just so bad. Like, it's so bad. The grammar and the poor writing, like, that's such a turnoff for me. You're not going to get me hot and bothered by something like that. You need to talk to me. Talk nerdy to me. That's what I need.
Nerdy to me. Come at me with that sci-fi, baby. Yeah.
I need an eloquently worded and properly punctuated sentence to get off.
Those commas do it for me, big boy. Yeah.
They really do. Do you notice my texts are always commas and like
so completely grammatically correct?
I punctuate my text messages.
Yes. I love it. It makes my heart
There's
happy.
no shorthand. Like, it's okay, well, we're at the hour, so I think we're gonna wrap it up. But Katie, thank you so much. Like,
you're welcome.
I would have just been here for an hour talking to myself about lesbian time travel, and I just don't think it would have worked.
MRSA on the labia. Anytime you want to talk MRSA on the labia, you call me there.
I don't think anybody ever wants to talk about MRSA on the labia.
Not in the history of anywhere. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Oh, man, that's so gross. Oh. All right. Well, anyway, we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on Book Besties. Don't forget to like and subscribe. This episode featured special guest Katie Alexander. The views discussed here are those of Katie and April, not those of anyone else. Today's book was One Last Stop by Casey McQuiston. Your Book Besties are Molly Biggs and April Watkins, editing by Thomas Watkins, and music is Sleep Sweetly by Brigida. Don't forget to follow Book Besties on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. If you would like to contact the Book Besties, please email us at bookbestiespod@gmail.com.